Morning, everyone. Not even going with good. Been a weird morning over here for your guy Jason, but we're ready to talk some football. You know it. You know it. It's wake and take time, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting excited here. We got some football to talk about. We got some news to break down, and we'll be talking about why my morning was weird as well. We'll go with a little tangent to start the show. But good morning. Morning. Good morning. I hope y'all are doing well. Go ahead, take out your coffee. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And great to see you all in the chat. I hope you like that. Might go down as the worst introduction in Wake and Take history. But Ryan, Robert, Dakota, glad to see you all. And if you're tuning in on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, thank you for tuning in as well. And of course, if you are listening to the podcast, thank you as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I just have a little bit of a PSA. And that PSA will come with a video. But I just have to ask and question, what are we doing as humans and as people? I had no idea this was a thing. Check out how I had very little sleep and check out why. I'm just going to, I got to figure this. I got to share my screen over here. Check this out. Now, it's not super loud. And what is going on? Nothing is working for me this morning. Nothing is working. I had to download a browser this morning also because for some reason the browser I always use couldn't recognize my webcam. So I had to download a whole new browser this morning to get going. Anyway, this is my neighbor at an apartment complex, 6 o'clock in the morning. He's been doing this since 3, just sitting out here, all of his doors open, damn subwoofer, just blasting music and just sitting there all night and all morning. What are you doing? What are we doing? What is this about? What is this? He literally just stopped. Like I am talking, just stopped like 20 minutes ago, maybe. And that was because of multiple neighbors like telling him to stop. He had a noise complaint come, and multiple times like he would stop for like 10 minutes and then just come back out and start blasting the shit again. I don't get it. I don't know what would drive you to do such a thing. At least close the doors or something. Like this isn't maybe at your own house, it's maybe fine. But like an apartment complex, like hundreds of people around you, and you're at least don't do the subwoofer. At least like my apartment was shaking. Like I'm on the 3rd floor across the street and my apartment was shaking. Like what are we doing here? What are we doing here? So that's my PSA. Don't be an asshole like at night. Like let people sleep, and at the very least, if you want to listen to music all night for some reason in the parking lot, maybe close your doors and maybe don't turn it all the way up and blast your subwoofer. I don't know, but it's pretty frustrating and annoying. And anyway, it did let me finish my wake and take prep much earlier than I normally do, as this guy couldn't get much sleep anyway. Which is kind of nice. Had a very productive morning as a result of this, but a very frustrating and annoying morning. As I mentioned, I already had to download another browser to get this show going. Had this happening, and some other stuff that we don't have to get into, but it's just a day. It's just a day. So anyway, let's start talking some football, and hopefully you guys learn a lesson. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. But you know what else I don't get? This video. We're going to go with another video that I just don't understand. You guys might have been seeing this popping around on the Twitter sphere, of course, as it's some big news here in the football world. Check out this video and let me know if you can tell who this is. I'm sorry, but that's fucking Scott Hanson. That's Scott Hanson right there. I don't know what's going on in the video. I got to be honest with you. A, why is the car flipped over? B, why is there a half-eaten watermelon in the glove box? Those are my questions. But then also, how is Scott Hanson just there? I just watched this. Look at this. Look at this. dude, what are you doing? And then just films him. This guy just pulled a watermelon out of this car. I don't know. I just thought it was weird and funny. I don't know what's going on with our world these last couple days, but that's where we are. Scott Hansen, for some reason, at the scene of a car crash where someone's pulling a half-eaten watermelon out of it. And my neighbor has decided to blast his subwoofer all night long with all of his doors and trunk open. That's where we're at. Happy 2024, everyone. Let's get this bread. Let's talk some football. Bijan Robinson is ready to light the world on fire. We've been saying it here. Why the hell are you drafting Christian McCaffrey when you can draft Bijan Robinson, when you can draft Breece Hall, when you can draft Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit later? Why draft Christian McCaffrey? Doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. The main point of that is we need to be drafting Bijan Robinson. And I know this is hype season. I get it. But this is what head coach Raheem Morris had to say about Bijan Robinson's usage in the upcoming season. In the simplest form as you can possibly make it, get the ball to Bijan as much as you can in as many ideal situations as you possibly can. For him, he's so talented, you don't want to limit the things he can do, but you also don't want to water it down so much that he's not doing anything he can do great. When he gets the ball in his hands, he makes people miss. He gets extra yards. He's able to fight for extra yards. He breaks tackles. He's fast. He's explosive. He's strong. He can do so many things that you get overwhelmed sometimes as a play caller and designer. But for him, I think he enjoys the whole process. He compared himself to Christian McCaffrey. And if we can get him anywhere near the great player that Christian McCaffrey is, I think we'll all be excited. There's something about that youthful arrogance that excites me. I absolutely love that. So Raheem Morris talking about absolutely feeding Bijan Robinson with a ton of volume next season. I think that's incredible stuff. And it's kind of all as we've expected. But going in the mid to late first round right now in underdog drafts, in redraft, in general, really, I think that's ideal value. I'm already on the record here and saying I'm not doing zero RB this year. That might come back to bite me. I am a hero RB drafter this year. I think that we are going to need one of Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe even Saquon Barkley as one of those running backs to kind of take us over the top this year. I think the wide receiver market has officially gone too far, and we've undervalued running backs a little bit too much. And we have now Kirk Cousins going there. He loves to check it down. We have the Rams kind of just offensive minds coming together in Atlanta. We've seen tons of running back success from that system, even out in Minnesota, right? Like, so this is just, it is about as ideal as it can get when it comes to Bijan Robinson. So I don't care how expensive he is. Go out and get him in Dynasty, but especially get him in redraft right now, as he's, I think, really easy to get. And I've been reaching for him even. I think his value is perfect right now, and maybe even a bit too low, as I think we really can expect some huge thing from him. And again, I know it's hype season, but I am 100% taking Raheem Morris at his word here. This is the exact type of athlete that deserves and needs that type of volume and efficiency and just being put in the right spaces. It's awesome. It's awesome stuff. Let's go Bijan Robinson. Let's go Bijan Robinson. Do you want Bijan or Hall is the question, and it's Bijan. Now, of course, I do think that Hall is going to be incredible this season. In fact, Breece Hall is really the only New York Jet I want this year. I think Garrett Wilson is a little overvalued, and I just don't really want to take a swing on Aaron Rodgers, even at his price. Like, I would rather just get like a Will Levis or a Matthew Stafford than take a swing on Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's 40 years old on an Achilles on a team that hasn't been good anyway. But I think Breece Hall has a very easy path to success, whether or not the Jets are good next year. We saw it last year. I mean, he had multiple 10-target games, and that's just how it's going to be. I think I think that Breece Hall is definitely set up for a ton of catches, which I think is going to be awesome for fantasy, especially in our PPR leagues. So I do want Breece Hall. But if you're asking me which one I'd rather have, it is Bijan Robinson. It's just a little bit more guaranteed of a better offense, although we're still projecting it. I do expect bigger things for the Falcons next year and just less concerns. And plus, Bijan Robinson didn't really get a ton of volume last year, so he's still a little bit fresh. So I want some Bijan for sure, but I also want Breece Hall, like no doubt about it, right? I mean, it is very, very close. So anyway. We will go ahead and move on, and I'm just going to go ahead and skip a little bit as I see a question here, so we might as well just use this segue. Marvin Harrison Jr., this is a quick one, but check this out. This is what Michael Wilson had to say about Marvin Harrison Jr. so far at camps, at OTAs, all this stuff. I mean, he really hasn't had any busts in the playbook, and I think he's very perspicacious and always seeking information and very self-aware. Never, ever in my life seen that word used before. This is what Marvin Harrison said in response to that. Perspicacious. Nah, see, that's that Stanford education. I ain't got that. And I just thought that was fun. For the record, according to the dictionary, perspicacious means of acute mental vision or discernment. So essentially, Michael Wilson is just saying that Marvin Harrison Jr. is grinding not just physically, but mentally as well, really trying to study this playbook and get everything right on top of having all the physical tools. That's exactly what you want to hear. Marvin Harrison Jr. might not have gone to Stanford like Michael Wilson, but he still has some of the brain power of a Stanford athlete, it sounds, if he's out there studying and being perspicacious, as Michael Wilson put it. So I would say, of course, again, draft Marvin Harrison Jr. We talked about it on yesterday's best ball draft. I actually think that Marvin Harrison Jr. is a little undervalued right now, and for good reason, right? I mean, like, he is a rookie, and we want to see the production, but we haven't really seen a prospect like this really ever. And also the production and the landing spot is it's just so many boxes are checked here that genuinely Marvin Harrison Jr. has a path to be the wide receiver one as a rookie. So I want him a lot, and I want Michael Wilson a lot. He's a Stanford guy. He's using words like perspicacious. Like, come on, how could you not want a wide? When was the last time we heard a wide receiver say perspicacious? That's a quarterback word. So I want Michael Wilson on top of wanting Marvin Harrison Jr. So here's the question. Would you trade Marvin Harrison Jr. for Anthony Richardson? Wow. I mean, if it's a super flex league, I think you have to. I think you have to if it's a super flex league. Like, I as much as I want Marvin Harrison Jr., I mean, getting a chance at a true, like, top tier quarterback in Superflex doesn't come around very often. Now, of course, that doesn't come around very often for wide receiver either, and that's exactly why this offer is on the table. But I see here that you already have Will Levis and Josh Allen, but I mean, like, you can have quarterback depth. It's not a big deal. If you get Anthony Richardson, and you could even offload some of these guys. I just think that's really, getting Anthony Richardson. Now, it's a risk, right? Like, Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, is a lot less of a risk than Anthony Richardson, of course. I mean, we already have the health concerns with Anthony Richardson. So if you don't want to make that risk, I totally get it. But I mean, I think your wide receiver room is good enough, right? I mean, you have Malik Neighbors, you have Zay Flowers, you have Jackson Smith-Njigba, Marvin Mims, and Ryan Flournoy. I mean, you can't really ask for much more in that department. And if you really wanted to, you could offload, Anthony Richardson again, probably for a little bit more. Or I'm already on record saying sell Josh Allen, so I might as well lean into that again too. Maybe explore seeing what they could add to Anthony Richardson to get to Josh Allen. I think that could be very interesting. I mean, those are very similar players, right? Anthony Richardson and Josh Allen. So maybe you could get a nice cherry on top and feel really good about that type of move. But either way, it sounds like Anthony Richardson is very acquirable from this league manager, and you should probably be taking advantage of that, in my opinion, whether it be Marvin Harrison Jr. or moving on from Josh Allen or something, or maybe one of your other receivers. Maybe he wants Malik Neighbors, right? That's where I'm at. You don't normally get a chance at a quarterback, especially a quarterback like Anthony Richardson in Superflex. I know it's at the cost of a very premier asset, but I don't hate that at all. So that's the Marvin Harrison Jr. stuff. He is being very perspicacious at training camps right now. So that's exactly what you want to hear. We'll move on now to Travis Kelce, who wants the load. He said that he's going to do it until the wheels fall off, and hopefully that doesn't happen anytime soon, but I can definitely understand that it's closer toward the end of the road than it is the beginning of it. I just got to make sure I'm set up for football after as well. I want the Chiefs to wear and tear me, baby. I'm ready for it, man. Put the load on me. So Travis Kelce's, after signing this 2-year extension, is at this point in time planning to fill out that 2-year extension. There's some speculation that he signs that extension just for some extra money and to have like a just in case if 2024 doesn't go well and all that, which is, still, of course, definitely the case. But it sounds like Travis Kelce signed that extension to play through 2025. I mean, when he's talking like that, saying he wants to just essentially play until his wheels fall off, then I mean that's what you want to hear, because he goes on. I really can't put a time frame on it. I love coming to work every single day. Obviously, I know there's opportunities outside of football for me, and you've got to keep that in perspective. I'm still a little kid when I come into this building. I know I'm 34 years old, about to be 35, but I have a lot of love to do this right here in the middle of the heat in June. I love coming to work every single day and doing this. So, I mean, like, that's exactly what you want to hear from one of these older players, especially in Dynasty. Like, it's terrifying rostering some of these guys that could really retire at really any moment, especially one like Travis Kelce that's probably been carrying your team for years. But I would feel a little bit more confirmed and comfortable rostering Travis Kelce hearing this. I mean, it sounds like he still wants a lot of volume, and it sounds like he just wants to play football. Now, of course, you're going to have the concerns with injuries, and anything could happen just with the snap of a finger in this sport. But at this point in time, it sounds like all intentions are there to finish out this 2-year extension at least. I mean, we just saw him have 121 targets last year in only 15 games. He was averaging 8 targets a game, which is just incredible for a tight end. So he's obviously still productive, still able to handle the volume, and hasn't really shown enough signs of slowing down. I know last year was a down year, but he still finished as the tight end too. So Travis Kelce still up there, still looking to play some football and loving every moment of it. And that's exactly what you want to hear. So good stuff from Travis Kelce. I've got some stuff on quarterbacks to talk about here, but before we get into that, I want to go ahead and talk about some of these holdouts going on at the camps that are happening. So we'll start with some of the people that have returned. Courtland Sutton is back. We kind of already talked about it here. He was really only sitting out voluntary training camp because he could. He is subject to fines if he was trying to sit out of these mandatory camps, and he didn't really have much leverage at his age, at his mid production. So, you know, he did what he could by sitting out of voluntary camps, but there's no point continuing the holdout. This is what he had to say. The point's already been made. I'm hoping that we're able to find a solution because this is where I want to be, and I'm just hoping that it's mutual. We'll see what happens. We've got a month for things to get situated, and hopefully things get situated because, you know, this is where I want to be. This is home, and this is where I want to hoist the Lombardi Trophy. This is the place where I want to retire, and I want to be in the Broncos Ring of Honor. So, of course, Courtland Sutton wants to stay in Denver, but it's all just going to come down to Denver and everything. He's at camps right now. He's at least going to be there this season. But I'm really, again, we talked about it. I'm not really sure if he's going to get an extension. He makes like a decent bit of money, right around $15 million, which is like fine for a wide receiver of his caliber at his age, in my opinion. And I don't really think an NFL team really wants to pay him much more than that. But maybe an extension could come his way for just a couple more seasons to kind of lock him in. Maybe that's all he's looking for. But either way, not holding out anymore. He is back. And another player that is back is Ja'Marr Chase. He held out from voluntary camps, but it's not like it really mattered. Yes, he has the contract dispute, but he also very much loves playing football and wants to be out there for the Bengals and wants to play with his friend Joe Burrow. So he's returned to camps, which is good. You know, we don't really like hearing holdouts for some of these star players because, you know, you want them to get into football shape as early as possible. And to hear Ja'Marr Chase doing that, that's all you need to hear by Ja'Marr Chase. Now, T. Higgins, however, is still absent. T. Higgins being franchise tagged, which he's not signed. He is actually not officially under contract because of that. So he is not subject to any fines for missing these mini camps. He's still looking for a contract resolution. It is a little strange as just a couple months ago, he had talked about being fine playing on the franchise tag and just saying he has to prove to the NFL that he's worth more money and a little bit longer of a commitment. But it's still over $20 million. Like, that's a lot of money for a season of football, and especially for a wide receiver 2. And I know T. Higgins is like a wide receiver 1B, but when your wide receiver 1 is Ja'Marr Chase, then, you know, you're a wide receiver 2. So T. Higgins, I think, honestly worth the franchise tag for the Bengals, especially with their situation, having to extend Burrow and Chase and you know, being in the Super Bowl window. You can't just throw money around willy-nilly. So bringing in T. Higgins just for the extra year made a ton of sense by the franchise. And T. Higgins, it makes a lot of sense for him to get the 20-something million bucks, ball out, and go get a contract on another team next year. And I hope that's what's going to happen. I think that's what's going to happen. I really doubt the Bengals extend T. Higgins really at all. They could potentially trade him maybe, but I doubt it. Like, they want to keep this thing together as much as possible. They already, unfortunately, had to get rid of Joe Mixon. I'm sure they didn't really want to do that. So they they're going to do everything in their power to keep T. Higgins, except a contract, I assume. That's where my head is at with this thing. I don't know if they have the resources to put it together, because Jamar Chase would be pissed if T. Higgins got an extension before him. So either way, this is something that I expect to kind of trail into even preseason, really. Like, I think that this is probably going to be the longest dragging one out of the bunch. CeeDee Lamb and, of course, Brandon Ayuk still absent. Not much to add to that situation. Amari Cooper is absent from the Browns camp, which is interesting. This is a surprise one that's kind of come out of nowhere. And this is what is kind of the situation per the article. Amari Cooper is entering the final year of his contract. He signed with the Cowboys in 2020. It was a 5-year, $100 million deal. And then they had to eventually move him for cap relief. However, the contract ended up being pretty attractive as wide receiver market grew. He's making an average of $20 million per year, which is tied for the 20th highest average annual salary at the position. And last year he finished 5th in receiving yards with 1,250, and doing that with playing with 5 different starting quarterbacks. He thinks he has a ton of leverage in his position right now in his age 30 season to go ahead and do what he can to cash out while he's still in the league. And so, yeah, that's kind of where he's at. He was at the OTAs, the voluntary OTAs, which I find very interesting. It's weird to me that he would go to the voluntary camps and then sit out of the mandatory camps, especially since there's no fines for sitting out the voluntary camp, and then there are fines for sitting out the mandatory camp. But maybe he just thinks that adds leverage or something. Right now, the Browns only have $13.7 million available. So they could adjust him a little bit, throw some extra money his way, maybe add some incentives or something. But I do expect some sort of compromise to come here for Cleveland. We saw them bring in Jerry Jeudy. They very much want to have weapons around Deshaun Watson for this season to figure out what the hell is going on. This is Deshaun Watson's last chance. Even if it was a massive contract, they will totally move on from him if he fails this year with the good wide receiver core, at least what they expect. So we'll see. Amari Cooper being absent does not help that, and I actually do expect the Browns to resolve this rather quickly. And they'll probably figure out some way to figure out Amari Cooper's fines, to be honest. Even if there's no legal way to do that in the rule book, I'm sure they'll still find something to put his way to where he's not totally upset and left in the dark. And lastly, Aaron Rodgers is absent of Jets mandatory camps. And this is an unexcused absence, but before you overreact and be like, what the hell is Aaron Rodgers doing? Don't. Robert Saleh came out and said that it is unexcused, but the team was aware about it. The quarterback had already had a previous engagement, and Robert Saleh said specifically, Aaron and I spoke before OTA started. He's been very good in communication and has been here the entire time. This is an unexcused absence, but he had an event that was very important to him, which he communicated. So it sounds like it's not a big deal. Big nothing burger. Aaron Rodgers playing ball. So that's all I've got for you guys in camp holdouts. Again, Amari Cooper, T. Higgins, technically Aaron Rodgers, and of course still CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Ayuk. So it is time to move on to the final portion of today's show, a little bit of quarterback talk, and we will go ahead and talk about this Joe Burrow situation. Paul Caldall Jr. on YouTube says, how much credence is there in the Joe Burrow retirement talk? Well, I will let Joe Burrow speak for himself. This is what Joe Burrow had to say yesterday. Whenever the injuries start to stack up, your football mortality kind of comes into the back of your mind. So that's definitely something I've thought about and something I have had to fight through. He is added that he's expects to be ready to go by the season. He said it's tough to say what percentage he's at currently, physically speaking, but he went on to say we don't have to be ready to go in the middle of June. We have to be ready to go early September through February. That's how we're attacking it like we want to be out there playing in February. You always forget how hard it is coming back from injury, and that's every time it happens. There's always peaks where you're like, I'm feeling great, and then a little bit later, you have a couple days where it's like, man, I'm not feeling great. In the past, I pushed through that, and it caused problems for myself. This year, I'm not doing that. Whenever you fight through adversity and come out on the other side, it definitely gives you a feeling of an invincibility, but obviously, that's not the case. So it's always a balancing act. It's not pushing through some things that I've pushed through in the past. I've always prided myself on my mental toughness to be able to push through pain and push through injuries, and that's been my growth this offseason. Taking a step back, and understanding my value to the organization and the team. So I think it starts off a bit rocky, and I apologize for the total clickbait thumbnail calling Joe Burrow Andrew Luck 2.0. But I think that while it starts off rocky, Joe Burrow talking about that he's thinking about his football mortality, life after football, and, how the injuries have kind of played into that. It also sounds like he has been very introspective about that, and that he has fought through it and kind of just figured out where he is, not only as a quarterback, but as a person, and where he wants to be in terms of his value to the team and just real life in general. And I think that's kind of the most important takeaway here, him understanding how much value he has to the organization, and also just not getting hurt a lot. He said that he always tried to play through injuries and be this big, tough guy. Well, remember last year, do you guys remember this, when Jamar Chase told Joe Burrow in training camp last year after he picked up that ankle injury to sit out and to stop because he didn't want him to have to play through an injury and he wanted him to heal up, and Joe Burrow told him no? Do we remember that? I remember that. And so that's who Joe Burrow is, right? A guy who tries to play through injury, and that is obviously to his detriment led to multiple injuries, whether they got worse or him just never really healing up totally. Of course, he started his career with the ACL, MCL, PCL meniscus tear. He had another MCL sprain the next season. He had a knee injury later in that season. Last year in the preseason, he had that calf strain as mentioned. I thought it was an ankle, so sorry about that, but it was a calf strain. And then, of course, he tore his wrist in week 11 last year. So it's just like things keep piling up for him. It's, I understand. And of course, it gets even more scary when you go to PlayerProfiler.com and you see his best comparable is Andrew Luck, right? A guy who also kind of just battled injuries, was a 101, is 6'4", 230 pounds, and all this stuff. But I think Joe Burrow, I don't know, right? I'll never know. We'll never know. Obviously, Andrew Luck's retirement came out of nowhere. But I think the way I'm reading into this quote, I think it's fine. I will say this, though. I think if he gets injured again, that's where things could become very concerning for A, him retiring, but B, just his health as a whole. I don't think he's quite earned the injury-prone tag yet, but I know some people are starting to speculate that. I know, and I will, of course, say what I always say, you're injury-prone until you're not, but I guess you're also not injury-prone until you are, so it can go both ways. But either way, I think Joe Burrow is probably fine. I think he wants to be out there playing football. I think he's Joe Cool for a reason. I think him and Jamar Chase have a great relationship, and I think he's going to get a ton of money. Actually, I think he has a ton of money, so it doesn't matter. Joe Burrow, I don't think this is going to turn into an Andrew Luck situation. At least I hope not. Again, the Andrew Luck situation kind of came out of nowhere. He was 29 and then just, had the injuries. He had the high ankle sprain and the labrum tear and all this stuff, concussion, shoulder inflammation, even a kidney laceration. But going back to earlier in the show, Andrew Luck has that Stanford education. He might have just been too smart for his own good, I just don't want CTE. I've done enough damage. I've made enough money. So I don't think Joe Burrow is quite that person. I just don't. And as OG Wan Kenobi says, he needs to do like Brady, take a pay cut to get a better O-line. That would be great. That would be fantastic. And also, again, it just sounds like he is going to kind of fix that mental toughness that I have to fight through injury mentality. And I think that'll go a long way. So I would say with this, if there's any trepidation about Joe Burrow, buy into it. He's at least going to be out there at a high level this season and probably next. And let me just double check this contract situation because I think that'll also kind of shine a better light on this situation as well. Yeah, he did sign that 5-year deal with the Bengals worth $275 million. He is good. He is signed through 2029. I think it'll be all right for Mr. Joe Shiesty. Maybe after 2029 he goes, maybe he'll be one of those quarterbacks that retires at 33, 32 as opposed to 40, but that's fine. But I don't think it's going to come out of nowhere type thing at all. So either way, that's kind of where we're at. That's the discussion on it. That's what has kind of sparked this whole thing, right? What is him just talking about how he's thought about his football mortality. But again, he ends that quote, that's something I've thought about and something I've had to fight through, right? So it sounds like he's thought about it, he's gone through it, and he's good, and he doesn't want to retire. But again, we'll see. These things develop out of nowhere, but I think it'd be fine, and I'd be buying into it if the Joe Burrow owner is getting a little scary. So we'll go ahead and hop across to another quarterback that is awesome, and that's Justin Herbert. And guys, Jim Harbaugh has been absolutely gushing about Justin Herbert. Listen to this. He's been incredible. I think it's probably the reaction that everybody has. From my standpoint, I knew he was really good, but when you're right up next to him watching, where you can feel the way the ball comes out of his hand, when it comes out, it's going a lot faster than you think, than it looks on tape. He's bigger and taller than you'd think watching TV. Every kind of sense. Smart. It's incredible the way he picks things up and masters things. Every detail, every small detail. The arm talent is better than advertised. It's an exciting thing. I found myself sitting at my desk at times going, he's on our team. You know, it's not just in shorts, because I've seen him do this in 11-on-11 NFL padded football games. What do you want to hear? I mean, we've been step for step with Justin Herbert. Like I have been mad about his value. I still think he's a buy, and I think that we're gonna find out why. Right? Justin Herbert is incredible. Incredible. Let me say that again. Justin Herbert is incredible. And right now, he is the QB 17 in Underdog. And on Keep Trade Cut, I think he's like the QB like 10 or 12, something like that. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, honestly, kind of probably fairly valued, but it's ridiculous for this type of quarterback. And I know that we are going to an offense that everyone's like, oh, they're going to run the ball a ton. They're going to pass the ball a ton too. There is one thing that I think everyone skips over when they evaluate offensive schemes, and that is personnel. Yes, Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh have historically ran the ball. Also, Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh have historically had mobile quarterbacks, or at the very least, have never had a Justin Herbert, okay? They're gonna pass the ball. Maybe not a ton. Actually, probably still a ton. But Justin Herbert's gonna have passing yards. He's gonna have passing touchdowns. And at the very least, say he only throws the ball 500 times next year. Right? And that's a low number for Justin Herbert. Say he only throws the ball 500 times, right? He's going to be it's a better scheme. You know, the weapons actually work well. You know, it's not great on paper, but they all operate in different areas of the field and will probably be open. And it's just going to be a better offense as a whole, run with some actually competent people. I want Justin Herbert everywhere I can get him. I think Ladd McConkey is going to help a ton. I think just having a good run game is going to help a ton. The Chargers haven't had a good run game. They have not had a good run game since like Melvin Gordon. And I know Austin Eckler has been good for fantasy football, but he's not the type of running back that makes defenses stay honest. They will let Austin Eckler beat them on the ground. And that's been the case. Austin Eckler has had to catch the pass, or like he's been a pass catching running back. It's been like Joshua Kelly, right? So having an actual run game now, I think, is going to make defenses more honest, and it's just going to make everything as a whole work together. Balanced offenses are incredible. And Jim Harbaugh is a very, very good coach. And Greg Roman is a very, very good offensive coordinator. I know they're going to be run first, but they're still going to pass the ball a ton. Like you're talking about guys that have had Lamar Jackson and Colin Kaepernick, J.J. McCarthy. And I don't even remember the Michigan quarterbacks before J.J. McCarthy. And I'm a Michigan fan. That's how bad they were. It was like Shea Patterson, right? That like who? You know, so don't put too much stock into the past. They now have Justin Herbert. They're going to pass the ball. Get him while you can. I think it's ridiculous he's been so undervalued. Like, do you really think that the Chargers are going to game plan around Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and Kamani Vidal? Or are they going to game plan around a potential Hall of Fame world-class quarterback, Justin Herbert? I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's pretty simple. Give me Justin Herbert, guys. It's ridiculous. It's gone too far. It's just gone too far. And I'm glad that I could get on my soapbox for a second there. Maybe I like Justin Herbert too much, but it's just like, come on. We have a disagreement, and this is fair. You think Allen and Williams elevated his game along with Eckler, and they've had some great OC. Moore was not a good OC with them, and Lombardi also wasn't. Both of them are gone for a reason. It was very, very one-dimensional offenses where they tried too hard to force it into the Justin Herbert superhero offense. That's not how any offense should ever be run. That's why the Bills keep failing. You can't just make your quarterback be a superhero. Like even the Chiefs, right? Like Patrick Mahomes has done it, but the years where he was winning the Super Bowl, they had a good defense, right? They had a good defense on top of it. The times where Patrick Mahomes was the biggest superhero, they what? Lost in the playoffs to the Bengals or lost to the Super Bowl to the Buccaneers. It's just, you can't do it. It fails every single time. So Justin Herbert, yes, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were good wide receivers for him. Keenan Allen especially, but Mike Williams was rarely healthy. Austin Eckler, great pass-catching running back, but a pass-catching, like I'm just gonna move on. We'll come back to this in season when Justin Herbert has a 400-yard, 4-touchdown passing game, and everyone's like, wait a second, they didn't run the ball every time? What's going on? Like, come on, guys, it's Justin fucking Herbert. My God. Brock Purdy. Do you guys remember last offseason? Oh, I didn't make an overlay for this one. Do you guys remember last offseason when Billy Muzio, Matty Kiwoom, Jason Allwine, of course, were screaming from the rooftops to take Brock Purdy while everyone was saying Trey Lance was still the starter? Do we remember that? Because I remember that. He was battling a shoulder injury. He was, Mr. Irrelevant. Were the 49ers really going to commit to him? Of course they were. We broke it down very easily here on the show. Billy Muzio broke it down very easily on his shows in an article as well. We all knew it here at Player Profiler, and that's why a lot of you have Brock Purdy on your rosters. But the good thing here, guys, the thing that I never even thought about, Brock Purdy, because of that, wasn't at OTAs or really the training camps last season for most of it. He was there a little bit. He did come in at some point and did start throwing a little bit. We started having those hype. He was throwing the ball. But we didn't know what it meant, wasn't really fully participating. Well, Brock Purdy now actually has a full offseason, which is incredible because also his rookie year, right, he was like Mr. Irrelevant. He was just kind of there going through the motions. Last year, he was injured. So this is like, he actually could pay attention, be like a leader in the room and truly soak in everything, which is awesome. And this is what he had to say about it. And last season. We'll just go with the full quote. We're full quote people here on Wake and Take. If you haven't found out, I hate nuggets. I like having the whole context. I know you guys too. This is what Brock Purdy said. We got all the way to the end. We're right there and weren't able to finish it. So for me, I had that taste in my mouth to get back into the gym. Start slowly working into it. And then here in OTAs, getting with head coach Kyle Shanahan and going over all the games that we played in, every play, and going over situational football and stuff, taking that and actually going out on the field and running things and having reps and throwing to receivers. Last year, I didn't have that. So now that I'm able to attack those kinds of things, I feel like I've gotten better. I'll buy into it. Actually, I was kind of thinking Brock Purdy is accurately priced. And I think even with Brock Purdy probably doesn't gain much value here just because, a lot of people are always going to say, oh, he's a product of his weapons. He's a product of Shanahan, yada, yada, yada. And he's already, fairly expensive at QB 14. And there's just so many good quarterbacks. So he probably doesn't increase much value. But I think he could this season, at the very least, really solidify himself. I still think there's a lot of doubters out there for Brock Purdy. And even I'm kind of one. It is one of those stories where it's it's just one of those, it's too good to be true things. It's just such a good story. But I mean, for now, I'm just going to keep buying into it. Really. I mean, why not? He still has all those weapons around him. He still has Shanahan around him. And even if they lose Ayuk, he still has Kittle, Debo, McCaffrey, Pierce Hall could be fine, right? I mean, so it's probably fine. It's probably totally fine. And I like it. He mentioned everything. How he's now in there, going over all the plays, getting those reps in, getting the connections built. That's exactly what you want from your quarterbacks. And so I'm excited. He's saying he feels like he's gotten better, and that's awesome. He's already been really good. And I'll take his word for it. I will take his word for it. I think he's probably telling the truth. I mean, you really can learn a lot in the offseason as a player, and it sounds like he's purposefully attacking every small detail. So that's awesome. So probably you can get Brock Purdy still like pretty easily. Like it's expensive-ish. I'll tell you a trade. I've acquired Brock Purdy in a few leagues this offseason, actually. But one that I remember specifically, I one for one swap Dak Prescott. Some people I know are Dakota Rain Prescott fans. I'm not one of them. I don't want a 31-year-old quarterback on his last year of his contract. I really don't. And so I swapped him for Brock Purdy. Right around the same range. Possible similar ceilings, but just younger. So I went with Brock Purdy there. I think that's a move I recommend 10 out of 10 times. I can't remember what my other one was. I think it might have been a CJ Stroud for like a Brock Purdy, like plus a ton. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. But either way, Dak Prescott for Brock Purdy, do it. And the last bit of news I have for you guys, this is Jacoby Brissett on Drake Maye. And also just the article too, as there's some important information from the article, NFL.com. Shout out articles. By all accounts, the number 3 overall pick has improved daily throughout offseason workouts, including impressing in Monday's mandatory minicamp session. Maye continued to take number 2 reps behind starter Jacoby Brissett after leapfrogging Bailey Zappi last week. Brissett was asked about Drake Maye and his improvements, and this is what he said. "Oh, definitely. Tremendously. Every day he's getting better. The good thing about it is it's not like, oh, I got it right now. He's just constantly trying to find ways to get better, making nice throws out there, and you're seeing his progression come alive. He's doing a good job of, he's been here 3.5 weeks a month, and he's made tremendous strides. Not only calling the plays, but his footwork, throwing the ball, and overall understanding of the offense." And I love it. I love it. It sounds, obviously your starter's going to say those things. But again, I just love this mentorship attitude that Jacoby Brissett has been bringing along to New England. And I think he's telling the truth here too. Like, he has no reason to lie really at all. I don't think he cares if he starts or not. Like, he has the contract. I'm sure he wants to play, but I don't think he cares either way. I genuinely think he's just being a good teammate. And Jacoby Brissett has always been that step for step throughout his career, a good leader, a good teammate, a good player. And so here, a veteran like Brissett say these things about Drake Maye. I think you have to listen and take note. So I'm going to end the show saying, also by Drake Maye. Do we have any questions in the chat? Why did I draft Purdy way ahead of Herbert yesterday? ADP. I just follow the ADP game. So yeah, Justin Herbert goes like rounds after Purdy, so I didn't feel the reach was needed. I actually did, to that point, draft Justin Herbert in a draft after that draft. I did another one, I believe. Or no, I'm doing a slow draft right now. I mentioned that on the stream, and I actually just took Justin Herbert in that. So as my third quarterback. I got Justin Herbert. Like, do you realize what I'm saying? In a super flex league, Justin Herbert is my third quarterback. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? So yeah, that is, I think that's it for questions. But yeah, Lombardi thought Herbert was Breeze and they passed a ton. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. They made Justin Herbert a superhero. You don't need to do that. And so I think him not having to be a superhero will actually help him. Sometimes too much volume is simply that, too much volume. Pitchers don't pitch every game for a reason. Okay? Like, it's just, all right, let's get Justin Herbert while we can, guys. Let's just get Justin Herbert while we can. Cool. I think that's it. I guess we have a good point here. I'll just go ahead and add this. I love UNC, but historically their QBs never pan out in the NFL for some reason. Maybe Maye breaks the mold. It has been what? Sam Howell, of course, and then Mitchell Trubisky, and then either way. Those are some bad quarterbacks, right? And Sam Howell still has a little bit of a chance, to be honest, right? The Seahawks isn't totally, it's a little bit there. Anyway, that is it. Justin Herbert or Caleb Williams? Justin Herbert, actually. You know what? Screw it. I'll again tease my quarterback rankings just real quick, just for everyone that stuck around. We're going to do a ranking show, but there's just too much news is coming out to where I can't just dedicate an entire episode to it yet. I want to make sure we get the news, but just again, real quick, I'll share my screen. I'll show y'all what I've been cooking up specifically in the quarterbacks, just so I'm showing you that I am putting where my I believe these takes. I'm not just yapping over here. So yeah, as you see, I have Justin Herbert as my QB 10 right now, ahead of Trevor Lawrence, ahead of Caleb Williams, ahead of Jaden Daniels, ahead of Brock Purdy, ahead of Tua, right? And only right behind Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow. And that is up for debate. Like, I think this range in particular, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, this is a very good range. All of them are fairly acquirable right now, with really good offenses, with really good weapons. I love it. I love it. I love it. And as you see, I have Anthony Richardson right ahead of that. That could easily change, right? If Anthony Richardson, as we talked about, it's a very risky asset, an asset that I love and I want a ton of and I'm betting on, but I understand the risk. And so that's why he's only 6. But I mean, but Anthony Richardson has the potential to be number 1 at the end of the season, while also having the potential to be like number 15 if he gets hurt again. But either way, I mean, people are still going to bet on him and that athleticism and all that stuff. So I think Anthony Richardson is an awesome dynasty asset. Only 22 as well. Think about that. Anthony Richardson is younger than Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Michael Penix and Bo Nix, of course. But I believe also Drake, no, same age as Drake Maye. So anyway, that is it. That's kind of my top ranks. I'll scroll real quick so you can see how far I've gotten. I've actually gone really far. I have it down to, I believe I've gotten through the 60s. Yeah, 64, I think is the last one I made note. So yeah, that is it. Warren and Wicks or JSN in Dynasty. JSN every day of the week, not even close. Jackson, Smith, and Jigba. Yeah, that should do it. That should do it. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in. That was another fun episode of Wake and Take, and we'll see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern on the Player Profiler, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Tune in to Trade Gods tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, where Matty Kiwoom and I will be breaking down AFC North buys. You guys have a good one. Have a Wednesday? Is today Wednesday? Have a wonderful Wednesday and a fantastic rest of your week. Peace.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.